Well, tonight we've learned President Trump will meet with El Salvador's president on Monday, although he is yet to comply with the Supreme Court's order to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia home. 7 News' Liana Golden has reaction from Garcia's legal team and explains how we got here.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia is the Beltsville husband and father who the Trump administration admits was deported last month by mistake. He's the subject of a federal status update filed just after 5 p.m. Saturday by a senior official with the State Department. It reads, quote, "It is my understanding based on official reporting from our embassy in San Salvador that Abrego Garcia is currently being held in the Terrorism Confinement Center in El Salvador. He is alive and secure in that facility. He is detained pursuant to the sovereign domestic authority of El Salvador." This is the first status report ordered by a federal judge in Maryland requesting daily updates on his whereabouts, though there's no mention of the steps being taken to facilitate Garcia's return to the United States, which the Supreme Court voted for in a 9-0 ruling.
He should be here in the United States. It's a 5-hour flight.
That's Garcia's lawyer speaking outside the U.S. District Court in Greenbelt on Friday, where a group gathered in support of Garcia's return.
We shall not be moved.
Attorney Simon Sandoval-Moschenberg stood with Abrego Garcia's wife, who was a U.S. citizen, at his side, saying this issue should have been resolved quickly.
It's been the government that turned this into a national issue. It was the government who appealed the judge's original, very reasonable and modest order all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. And now it's the government who is, coming into court saying, yes, Judge, we blew off your first deadline. We haven't yet, taken any steps, or we're not prepared to show you what steps we've taken to comply with your order.
Garcia's legal team also releasing a statement following the Alive and Secure update, saying, quote, "We are incredulous. 24 more hours and still no answers as to what they've done so far and what they're planning to do going forward to carry out the Supreme Court's ruling." I'm Liana Golden, 7 News.
Top story this morning, the president of El Salvador will meet with President Trump at the White House. And this comes as we have been following the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He is the Prince George's County father who officials admit was mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
Now, the Trump administration claimed that he is a member of the MS-13 gang, but his family says that is not true. 7 News' John Gonzalez is live this morning outside the White House. And John, at last word, Garcia is still in that prison in El Salvador, right?
That's right, Melanie. Good morning. And in a 2-page report, court-ordered report, the U.S. State Department has said that Abrego Garcia is alive and secure inside that Central American facility, that the terrorist confinement. Well, the lawyers, the legal team of this local father and husband says, well, they have no reason to believe any of these claims until they have their client back home here safely. In the meantime, President Trump here at the White House will host El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele today to discuss the use of the Salvadorian Supermax prison for migrants deported from the U.S. Now, there is little doubt that Abrego Garcia's situation here will not be one of the top discussions at the White House today. The Trump administration is preparing to send more immigrants with criminal records to El Salvador on the heels of a Supreme Court order allowing for sweeping wartime authority for deportations. But the justices have also been unanimous in the decision to get Abrego Garcia back home, regardless of the president's argument that he was once a member of MS-13. President Trump posted on his Truth Social platform, take a look. Over the weekend, he said that the U.S. and El Salvador are working closely together to eradicate terrorist organizations and build a future of prosperity. He added that the future of the deported migrants in Salvadoran custody is, quote, up to President B and his government. They will never threaten or menace our citizens again. So how will this local case with Abrego Garcia affect legal protections and perceptions in the future? We'll talk about that later this hour. Reporting live outside of the White House, John Gonzalez, 7 News.
This was the scene outside the White House this morning. Faith leaders and judicial advocates supporting Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They held a prayer vigil for his return. This here is a live look at the president of El Salvador at the White House meeting with President Trump. In a 2-page report, the State Department has released an update saying Kilmar Abrego Garcia is alive and secure in that maximum security facility. Lawyers for the father and husband from Prince George's County say they cannot believe the claims in that report. Let's listen in to a bit of what's being discussed right now at the White House.
They're dangerous, not just people, because we have people, but we have millions of people that are murderers, drug dealers. They've been allowed to come into our country by other countries that were very smart. When they heard that this very low IQ president, and by the way, I took my cognitive exam as part of my physical exam, and I got the highest mark, and one of the doctors said, "Sir, I've never seen anybody get that kind of one." That was the highest mark. I hope you're happy with that, although they haven't been bugging me too much to take a cognitive, but I did do my physical and it was released. I hope you're all happy with it. I noticed there's no question, so probably you are. But the cognitive, they said to me, "Sir, would you like to take a cognitive test?" I said, "Did Biden take one?" No. "Did anybody take one?" No, not too many people took them. I said, what about Obama? Did he take one? No, he didn't take one either. I said, let me be the only one to take one. But I've actually taken them 3 times already. I like taking them because they're not too tough for me to take. But we had a great physical exam, so I knew you were going to ask that. And the doctors, who are total professionals, Walter Reed Medical Center, they're great people. And I visited a soldier that was badly wounded, incredible soldier, lost his leg, and spent a lot of time with him. I mean, great with his mother, and it was really a very great thing. They do a phenomenal job. I just want to say, Walter Reed, I was there for, 5-6 hours. You were there with me. But I took a full physical, and he came out perfecto, so that's good. That means you've got me for a little longer.
Would you also be willing to pay for those facilities to be opened if new ones were going to be built?
I'd do something. We'd help them out. Yeah, we help them. They're great facilities, very strong facilities, and they don't play games. I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that, Steve, okay?
President,
How essential is it for you guys to be locking up these prisoners? And do you think more presidents should follow suit like you guys as far as taking a hard stance on crime here in the United States?
Well, I do. I think everybody has to. I mean, the president said it better than anybody. He said, you have liberty and you have to have liberty, but to have liberty, not everybody is going to be good. And, some are bad because they're sick. They're mentally deranged. They're bad.
Why do you think
then you have to take them, if you're going to have a country, you're going to have to take those people out. And we've been doing that. But this was like an unforced error, they would call it, where we had people that may hate our country, or maybe they're just stupid people. I think they're probably stupid people more so. A lot of people said they did it for the vote. But I did better with Hispanic people than they did, because they always use Hispanic. I did better. You people love me. I saw my poll numbers in your country. I'm through the roof, right? 91%. Some people think they do it for the vote. But they don't have to do it for the vote. They cheat, they're professional cheaters. That's about the only thing they do well. So we just have had a great relationship, and it's become bigger because of a strange thing that happened. I came back. We had no war in Ukraine. We had no we had no October 7th Middle East problem. We had nothing. We had no inflation. We didn't have the Afghanistan most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. The Afghanistan, not withdrawing, because I would have been out. I had it all set to bring people out with dignity and pride. That was the worst, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan. We didn't have any of that. You wouldn't have had the war with Russia, Ukraine. You wouldn't have had the Middle East problem because Iran was broke. They had no money because we had secondary sanctions on and lots of other sanctions. And now every single thing. Got a problem with Iran, but I'll solve that problem. That's almost an easy one. We got to solve a war that should have never started, Ukraine and Russia, and we'll get that solved.
All right, you've been listening to President Trump answer a range of questions on various topics from the White House. He again is joined by the President of El Salvador, We'll have much more on what comes out of this exchange with the press in our later newscast. Well, all of this comes as a federal judge cleared the way for a new immigration policy to take effect Friday. It includes mandates that require non-citizens older than 14 years old to register with the government. They will also have to submit their fingerprints and carry proof of registration. If they don't follow these guidelines, they could face criminal charges.